Hey guys, tonight we begin with a slow, peaceful journey into a place that once breathed with the soft, steady rhythm of the world's first great river cities, Ancient Babylonia. Imagine, if you will, a wide, slow ribbon of water under a low sky, reed beds whispering at its edges, and clay sun-warmed beneath open hands. Tonight, we'll move gently through that landscape, the land between the Tigris and the Euphrates, and trace how environment, water, and human care form the cradle of Babylonia. Before we settle in and begin our peaceful journey, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, only if what I share here truly resonates with you. Your support helps me create more of these videos, and if you feel like it, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see the many corners of the world where we connect. Now, dim the lights, make yourself comfortable, and let's ease into tonight's journey together as we explore what lies ahead. Chapter 1: The Land Between the Rivers. Close your eyes if you like and imagine sound rather than sight. There's the soft, endless murmur of water, slow, patient, and rhythmic, and with it the whisper of reeds rubbing together in a warm breeze. The ground beneath is patchwork, strips of dark, wet soil that shine after a rain, broader plains baked into a warm, earthen tone by the sun, and channels dug by patient hands to carry the river's blessing to the fields. We are in Mesopotamia, literally the land between rivers, the cradle where Babylonia would one day rise. Geography matters here. The Tigris and the Euphrates wind like silver threads through what is now southern Iraq. For much of the year, their flow is steady. In spring, they swell from distant rains and snowmelt, spilling onto the plains. Those floods are not simply disasters or blessings. They are rhythm, seasonality that the first farmers learned to read like a soft, familiar song. Over centuries, people turned floods into a partner, cutting canals and building low levees, so water would linger just long enough for barley and wheat to drink deeply, but not so long as to drown tender shoots. The climate is honest and elemental: hot summers, cool winters, and a sky that moves slowly from pale blue to the copper tones of dusk. Vegetation in the marshy margins is resilient: reeds for mats and boats, poplars for shade, and date palms whose fruit would one day be a staple. Animal life is present in gentle forms: herds of sheep and goats moving like a slow tide, the occasional grazing on the wetter pastures, and birds that ride thermals above the marshes. This is not a wild, untamable wilderness. It is a pliant landscape that responds to human care and, in return, gives abundance. Now imagine the first people who lingered here for longer than a season, small groups that had once moved with herds, who now planted seeds and returned each year to the same patch of earth. Their houses are simple: sun-dried mud brick with low doorways, courtyards where bread is baked and clay pots cool. There is the near-constant scent of wet earth and baking grain, the rhythm of daily tasks: fetching water at dawn, tending irrigation ditches, mending nets and reeds. Children play with small clay tokens and hollowed gourds. You can almost hear the laughter like a distant, soft bell. Agriculture is the quiet revolution that shapes everything. A reliable harvest creates space for more than survival. Some people can tend flocks, others weave cloth, some make pottery, some carve soft stone into tools, and some learn to manage the water itself. Over generations, this division of labor deepens. The fields supply more than food. They supply time, and time becomes craft, and craft becomes culture. From these humble villages, time and organization build towns. Imagine a place where the houses cluster around a larger, rectangular compound, a temple complex made of higher, baked bricks that glint faintly in the sun. These temples are more than religious centers. They are stores of grain, hubs of administration, and places where the community brings offerings and seeks counsel. Priests and managers keep track of goods, using early counting methods, small tokens pressed into clay, bundles of reeds tied and recorded. The ancestor steps toward writing itself. The pulse of order grows. Water managers coordinate the canals, tool makers exchange goods with basket makers, and travelers bring obsidian and shells from afar, whispering that the world beyond these rivers is larger than it first seemed. Pause now and let the scene settle like dusk. Hear the low murmur of conversation across a courtyard as a pot cools, the thud of a paddle in shallow water, the soft crackle of flames under a bread oven. Consider how each small, ordinary sound is part of a grander pattern, the slow, steady formation of a civilization that will one day be called Babylonia. There are deeper currents too that we will follow in later chapters, how irrigation led to surplus and surplus led to trade, how trade brought ideas, materials, and strangers with new languages, and how growing wealth created new forms of power, leaders who could direct canals, collect grain, and command labor. Temples and palaces rise from the same clay. Social roles become more defined, and with them, the need for rules and memory, for ways to record who owned what, who promised what, and what a city owed its people. All of this is the slow material of civilization, assembled day by day, season by season. For now, let us imagine a single, small story that might have happened on the banks of the Euphrates, a gentle scene to hold in your mind as we rest in this first chapter. A young woman named Leah wakes before dawn. She walks barefoot along a narrow canal, the wet mud cold beneath her feet. Her basket holds a long bundle of reeds and a few earthen lamps. At the field edge, she meets her neighbor, an older man named Ohar, who shows her how a small dam was reinforced the previous night to hold back a stubborn feeder stream. They exchange a small loaf, the kind wrapped in palm fronds, and talk in low voices about the spring planting. Leah carries the lamps to the temple courtyard where they will be set as offerings. Her hands are stained with river clay. Her clothes smell faintly of smoke and barley. She sits for a moment on the threshold and watches a child shape a tiny clay animal, pressing a thumbprint into its belly as if gifting it a heart. When you listen to this scene, the familiar gestures, the ordinary caring that binds neighbors, you encounter the true architecture of Babylonia, not just grand kings or towering walls, but countless small acts of tending, sharing, and remembering. Before we move on, notice one quiet, important invention forming in the background: memory-made material. Clay tablets pressed with marks, tokens kept in jars, and lists recorded in an orderly hand, beginnings of what will become writing. This is the tool that will let people speak across time, to pass laws, to record contracts and prayers, to tell stories that survive their tellers. It is a gentle but profound turning point, and we will return to it again and again. As this chapter closes, let the image of the rivers settle in your mind, patient, carrying silt like a slow promise, the small mud brick homes gathered like beads along the banks, the reed boats moving in the morning light, and the human voices, low and steady, weaving the fabric of daily life. We have started at the beginning: place, climate, the first farmers, and the slow emergence of towns and the institutions that hold them together. In the chapters ahead, we will visit the rise of cities, the shaping of kingship and law, the inventions of writing and numbers, the dreams and duties of temple life, and the stories people told about their gods. We will meet rulers and craftsmen, stargazers and scribes, builders of great walls and ordinary parents at hearthside. Each will reveal a different facet of Babylonia's long, gentle wake. When you are ready, breathe in slowly, feel the steady rhythm of the rivers in your chest, and keep this calm scene with you as a foundation for what comes next. Chapter 2: Cities Take Shape. The heartbeat of urban life. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a distant hum, a steady, low chorus of life rising from clay and stone. It is the sound of a city waking, not the harsh, hurried clamor of modern metropolises, but the calm, purposeful rhythm of people moving in time with the river and the sun. Here, in Babylonia, small villages have grown together like beads on a string. Where once a handful of mud brick houses dotted the marsh, now there are streets, squares, temples, and walls. This is the moment when scattered settlement becomes city, and the way people live together changes in almost every gentle, surprising way. The city is an organism with many parts. Imagine approaching one from the road. First, you see the protective ring of the wall, built of hardened brick warmed by the sun. Through a gate, you walk into a tangle of lanes, some wide and dusty where donkeys and carts pass, others so narrow that laundry stretches from wall to wall like banners. Courtyards open like quiet chambers off the streets, where women grind grain and children chase one another under the shade of date palms. Above many houses, flat roofs serve as sleeping places in hot months and as terraces where families mend nets or dry herbs. The air moves slowly here, carrying scents of baking bread, wet clay, tanned leather, and the faint, sweet tang of resin used to seal pottery. At the heart of the city stands the temple complex, a cluster of buildings rising higher than the rest, crowned by a stepped tower that points toward the sky. This is a place of prayer and ritual, yes, but also a center for economy and memory. Grain stored in temple granaries feeds the town in lean months. Craft workshops near the temple make offerings, and scribes keep records of who gifted what and who received what in return. The temple is part storehouse, part bank, part civic hall, a gentle reminder that religion and administration are woven together in the urban fabric. Markets or bazaars are gentle theaters of exchange. Walk past a stall, and you might see a potter arranging bowls, some still warm from the kiln, their curved rims catching the sun in a soft gleam. Nearby, a weaver unrolls a length of wool cloth, her fingers smoothing a pattern of stripes and knotwork. A fishmonger displays the day's catch on woven reeds. Traders lay out beads of semi-precious stone that whisper of distant places, the gray-blue of Anatolian obsidian, a pale green stone from the Zagros hills, a polished shell from the sea. Traders speak in measured tones, negotiating with small, respectful gestures. The market is a place of stories as much as of goods. With each exchange comes a conversation about the road, the weather, or a rumor of a caravan from far-off lands. Craftsmanship flourishes here. Imagine the potter's wheel turning like a small, patient moon, a metalworker hammering bronze until it sings a bright note, a lapidary polishing a bead until its surface mirrors the sky. These crafts require time and skill passed from parent to child, from master to apprentice. In many homes, thread and loom sit waiting. In others, apprentices copy the neat, repeating characters of cuneiform tablets with a blunt reed stylus, learning the discipline of record-keeping. This is where art and everyday life overlap. Jewelry for a wedding, a carved plaque for a household shrine, a finely baked jar for storing precious oil. Each item carries quiet stories of hands and days. One of the most profound changes inside cities is the growth of specialization. Because farmers can depend on stored grain, not everyone must plant or harvest. People become full-time weavers, full-time potters, full-time shipwrights. This creates a subtle, powerful web of interdependence. The weaver needs wool from shepherds. The potter needs clay from riverbanks. The merchant needs secure roads to carry goods. Social roles become clearer, and with clearer roles come new kinds of responsibility and sometimes new tensions. Yet in the soft light of the evening courtyard, most tensions ease into compromise. Neighbors sharing water, artisans lending tools, families swapping recipes. Let me tell you a small calming story, a day in the life of a scribe named Nabuzu, whose existence gently links the many parts of the city. He rises before dawn, his reed stylus wrapped carefully in cloth. On the way to the temple archive, he steps through the market and watches a woman dyeing wool with plant-based pigments, her hands stained with gentle purples and rusts. At the archive, there are stacks of wet clay tablets left to dry, each bearing the tidy, wedge-shaped marks that carry names, numbers, and promises. Farmers bring lists of which fields have been sown. Merchants bring receipts for the grain shipped downriver. The priest brings the account of offerings distributed to the poor. Nabuzu's work is slow and exact, pressing each wedge in careful sequence, his breath in time with his hand. He reads what others have written. He copies, corrects, and seals. At midday, a neighbor shares a bread loaf. In the late afternoon, he walks to a small garden behind the archive, where he traces the constellations he read as a child on the underside of a clay tablet. In these little rituals, the steady work, the shared food, the private sky mapping, the city finds its calm continuity. Administration and memory are crucial in urban life. The city needs ways to record taxes, distribute rations, and resolve disputes. Here, writing becomes not just an art, but a practical tool. Clay tablets, tallies, and seals ensure that agreements are remembered the same way by different people. These records protect the small and the large alike. A farmer's claim to a plot, a craftsman's order for metal, a temple's account of its stores. Without these soft, unglamorous mechanisms, the complex machine of the city would falter. The quiet, repetitive marks of a stylus in soft clay are as foundational as the bricks of the wall. Cities also invent new forms of social life. Festivals that stitch people together in shared rhythms, public rituals that bring together craftsmen and the priesthood, and communal labor for maintaining canals and walls. Imagine the hush before a festival, followed by a slow rising of music, reed pipes and drum, and a procession that moves down the main thoroughfare, banners fluttering, children trailing behind with small clay figures. These moments are breathing spaces where the city remembers itself as more than a collection of roles. They are, in their own soft way, civic therapy, a time to celebrate harvest, to honor the river, to share thanks. Not all is always calm. The city carries within it the possibility of scarcity, of disputes, of inequality, Sometimes the river yields less. Sometimes a pest takes the crop. Sometimes a trader fails to repay a loan. But the city's structures, its granaries, its laws, its practices of record-keeping provide buffers, careful systems that aim to even out the natural fluctuations and human failings. In this sense, the city is an expression of mutual care, the building of walls and temples, the storage of grain, the organized response to crisis, all speak to a shared desire for continuity and care. As our second chapter draws to a close, let us rest on a final image: the city at dusk. Smoke threads up from many chimneys, lanterns are lit in courtyard niches, and the soft sounds of conversation swell and recede like waves. Somewhere, a weaver hums a repeated tune as she knots a fringe. A child falls asleep with a small clay animal held close. A scribe leans back, satisfied with the neat rows of wedges he has shaped that day. The city breathes, steady and patient, alive with countless private acts that together create public life. In the next chapter, we will move from the city's everyday to the shaping of power, how leaders arose, how authority was negotiated between temples and palaces, and how law and ritual became instruments of order. We'll also hear a vivid story about one ruler's decision that changed a city's fate. Stay with me. There is a gentle revelation ahead that you will not want to miss. Chapter 3: Kings, Priests, and the Quiet Architecture of Power. Breathe in slowly, and as you exhale, imagine the city's skyline softened by a late amber light, the stepped outline of the temple, the low ridge of the palace walls, and the thin, shimmering line where canal meets horizon. In such light, power does not announce itself with thunder. It settles quietly, like a great stone placed with care. Power in Babylonia grew the same way, built from practical needs, slow negotiations, and the accumulation of small, ordinary authorities, until one person, or one office, carried the right to speak for many. Let us begin with the earliest stirrings. In the earliest villages, leaders were people known for skill and steadiness. A successful canal builder, a careful grain keeper, an elder who remembered treaties and who could speak for the group. These practical authorities acted because their neighbors trusted them to protect the common interest, to keep channels clear, distribute seed, or settle disputes. Over time, as towns densified into cities, those practical needs multiplied. Canals required planning across many fields. Granaries required oversight so stored reserves wouldn't spoil. Security against bandits and raids needed coordination. The natural next step was to concentrate certain responsibilities in a single office, sometimes hereditary, sometimes chosen, the slow emergence of what we now call kingship. In Babylonia, the relationship between the temple and the palace is one of gentle tension and mutual dependence. Temples, the places of the gods, were also major economic institutions. They owned land, stored grain, and employed many people. Priests managed rituals that soothed anxieties and bound people together in shared belief. Palaces, by contrast, were centers of political authority and military organization. They housed chieftains and their retinues, and they organized labor for large projects like walls and canals. Neither could be completely separated from the other. Power often wore two faces: the sacred voice that professed to act in the god's name, and the practical hand that managed resources and people. Imagine the daily work of a ruler, not the imperial parade, but the quiet duties that actually hold a city. He, or occasionally she, meets with the chief irrigation manager at dawn, tracing the map of canals with a thin finger. This is a practical conversation about gates and sluices and who will repair which feeder channel before the next planting. Later, the ruler sits with scribes to review the day's receipts, deliveries of barley, a tax record from a distant village, a petition from a craftsman whose kiln was taken by flood. In between, there are rituals to witness or sponsor, offerings to present to the temple, and decisions about when to call out labor for wall repairs. The ruler's power is therefore both sacred performance and everyday administration, the two woven into a single, soft fabric. Ritual is not mere pageant. Public ceremonies did several useful things at once. They reaffirmed the ruler's relationship with the city's gods, which provided legitimacy. They created moments when the population gathered and exchanged news, and they produced a shared story that bound people emotionally to their leaders. The ruler might present a newly sharpened plow to the temple, declare a day of gratitude after a good harvest, or sponsor a procession that moved through marketplaces and into the temple precinct. These acts cultivated trust and reminded people that authority was rooted both in the soil and in the unseen order. Let us consider law and justice as another quiet pillar of power. As cities grew, disputes multiplied, boundary lines blurred, loans were forgotten, neighbors had different memories of agreements. Without reliable mechanisms to settle arguments, tensions festered. So rulership expanded to include adjudication. The leaders, sometimes judges appointed by temples, sometimes royal officials, created rules to make outcomes predictable and fairer in appearance. Writing, already used for accounts and inventories, became a way to record contracts and laws. The presence of written law acts like a soft mirror. It reflects social expectations back at the community and reduces the arbitrariness of power. This process culminates, in later centuries, in formal law collections that are publicly proclaimed and carved in stone. But the seed begins much earlier, in careful record-keeping, witness lists, and ritual oaths. The existence of written laws makes the social contract visible and shareable. It gives a small protection to the vulnerable by insisting that words be remembered in a stable form. The force of law is not always absolute, but its quiet presence shapes behavior like a steady tide shaping the shore. Military and security concerns also shape rulership, though not always in dramatic ways. Early on, defense meant organizing men to guard trade routes, escort grain caravans, and repair vulnerable sections of the wall. Over time, as cities competed for resources, leaders learned that having a small, loyal force could deter aggression. But the ruler in Babylonia was as likely to be judged by his proficiency in canal maintenance and food distribution as by his prowess in war. In many seasons, keeping the river's gifts flowing was a greater test of leadership than battle. Another important piece of the architecture of power is taxation and redistribution. The city's storehouses, sometimes managed by the temple, sometimes by palace administrators, collected tithes, labor dues, or surpluses. In times of scarcity, those stores could be used to feed the hungry, to hire laborers for public works, or to support the temple's rituals. Redistribution became an instrument of stability. By ensuring that some grain was available after a poor harvest, rulers and priests could prevent panic and maintain social order. Again, power reveals itself as a caretaker more than a conqueror. Now, a small illustrative story, not an exact historical chronicle, but a composite of the kinds of decisions that quietly changed cities. Imagine a ruler we will call Enlil-Mati. One late spring, the rains in the uplands are thin, and the Tigris runs less full than usual. At the same time, a stubborn silting begins to choke a feeder canal that supplies several fields near the city. The farmers come to Enlil-Mati in small groups, their faces lined with worry, asking that the canal be cleared. The task will require 10 days of organized labor, food for the workers, and a short halt to other public projects. Enlil-Mati could do the obvious thing, levy a tax to pay for outside labor and assign the project to a contractor. But he understands how delicate trust is. He chooses instead to open the palace granary to feed the workers, to call for citizen volunteers by promising an extra ration to families who contribute labor, and to personally oversee the first day's work. He stands at the canal bank with his sleeves rolled, handing out bread. The sight of the ruler working beside farmers reassures people. Within a week, the feeder is cleared, fields receive water, the planted grain survives. The immediate crisis is averted, and long after, people tell the story of the ruler who fed the workers and rolled up his sleeves. The memory of that small act reinforces the ruler's legitimacy more than a distant triumph would have. This story shows the subtle balance of legitimacy. Rulers needed to be efficient managers, seen as protectors of shared resources and visible participants in the city's life. The most enduring leaders combined administrative competence, religious sponsorship, and a measure of public humility. A final strand to consider is the development of bureaucracy and the scribal class. As administration grew more complex, so did the need for specialists who could read, write, and account. Schools for scribes, often attached to temples, taught the next generation how to press wedge-shaped signs into clay, to calculate rations, and to keep ledgers. Scribes were civil servants, teachers, and archivists all at once. Their work created continuity across generations. Laws, records, treaties, and even poetry were preserved because of them. The iconography of the scribe, a reed stylus poised over a tablet, becomes, in many ways, a symbol of the city's memory. As this chapter winds down, let us rest on a composite image: the ruler and priest moving through a city market, exchanging brief words with craftsmen, a scribe copying a contract by lamplight, workers repairing a sluice under the ruler's watchful eye, and a procession winding to the temple as offerings move slowly into darkened halls. The scene is not one of spectacle, but of many small, steady acts that maintain a fragile, complex balance. In our next chapter, we will explore law more fully, the origins of written codes, how justice was performed in practical terms, and what legal life meant for ordinary people. And we will meet the figure whose name would later become almost synonymous with the law itself. There will be concrete examples that show how rules shaped daily life, and a calming, surprising look at how even punitive measures were embedded in practices meant to stabilize the community. Rest now with the sense that power in Babylonia was rarely an abrupt thunderclap. It was a long, patient construction of institutions, rituals, and practices that sought to hold the fragile web of urban life together. Chapter 4: Law, Justice, and Everyday Order. How rules shaped Babylonian life. Breathe slowly and settle into a comfortable posture. Tonight, we move into a realm that often feels dry on the surface, but is quietly full of human detail. law. In Babylonia, law was not an abstract idea reserved for judges. It was a practical set of habits and records that touched work, family, trade, water, and hearth. Law made expectations visible, kept promises legible, and offered a slow kind of public calm, a way for people to know what to expect of one another. One of the clearest expressions of that impulse is the famous collection of laws associated with King Hammurabi, whose decisions were assembled and proclaimed to provide a shared standard across cities. Imagine a stone chamber, the light of a lamp making the soft sheen of wet clay glow. Men and women come to speak their complaints or register a contract. A scribe sits with a stylus, and a local official listens, asking for witnesses. The sound you hear is low and precise: names, dates, the careful pressing of record into clay. From these simple transactions flows an ordered world: debts written down and sealed, dowries acknowledged, boundary lines mapped in measurable terms. The everyday usefulness of law is less spectacle and more the small, steady relief of knowing one's rights and obligations. The code commonly associated with Hammurabi contains a collection of case laws, some 282 provisions in the preserved stele, that touch almost every area of life: commercial transactions, labor, family matters, slavery, property, agricultural obligations, and criminal offenses. These rules were not only theoretical, they were created to be read and displayed, to be recited and applied so that ordinary people could appeal to them in disputes. One of the most well-known principles in these laws is the idea of lex talionis, the eye for an eye principle, which sought in some cases to equate harm with equivalent recompense. But lex talionis did not operate in a vacuum. Punishments and compensations were often conditioned by social rank, by the nature of the offense, and by negotiated settlements. In other cases, monetary compensation replaced corporal penalties, especially where the offender could pay to restore balance. The law thus offered a spectrum of responses intended to restore order, rather than simply to enact mindless vengeance. Let us linger on a few concrete categories so you can picture how legal life touched ordinary people. Family law, marriage, dowry, and divorce. Marriage contracts were practical documents. A dowry or bridal gift was recorded so that, in the event of separation or death, obligations were clear. Women had legal protections in several areas. They could hold dowries, bring cases about abandonment, and in certain circumstances seek divorce or compensation. Yet outcomes depended on class and local practice. The law attempted to weigh the stability of households while protecting property and children's rights. These agreements were often recorded as clay tablets, sealed, so that a later judge could read exactly what had been promised. Property, contracts, and trade. Contracts were everywhere. A grain loan, a contract to build a wall, the sale of a herd. Each was a transaction that could be sealed with a witness and a written note. Seals and signatures, impressions in clay, acted like tiny guarantees, a physical promise preserved for later. Merchants traveling the rivers carried copies of agreements. Local officials could call witnesses and check records. In this way, commerce moved with a kind of dependable rhythm. Agreements were not merely spoken and then forgotten. They were fixed into the community's memory. Liability and professional responsibility. The laws paid attention to workmanship. A builder whose house collapsed and killed its owner could be held liable, sometimes to the point of the builder's life or the life of his son being at stake. or else required to reconstruct the house at his own expense. This is not a tale of automatic cruelty, but of a legal expectation that professional failure had consequences and that accountability could be enforced to protect others' lives and livelihoods. Such provisions encouraged careful workmanship and offered a social deterrent to negligence. This is one of the vivid examples preserved in the law collection. Slavery, debt, and social class. The law codified social distinctions between elite free persons, commoners, and slaves, and assigned different remedies and penalties according to status. Slaves could be property, but they also had some limited legal protections and could sometimes acquire property or be manumitted. Debt slavery and pledges were real possibilities for those pressed by difficult seasons, and the law outlines processes for reclaiming collateral and for adjudicating disputes between debtors and creditors. These rules both reflected and smoothed real social stratifications, attempting to keep civic life continuous despite inequality. Now, consider the machinery of justice itself, the quiet operations that made laws responsive and meaningful. A person bringing a claim would typically present witnesses and a sworn statement before an official or judge. Evidence took many forms: witness testimony, a sealed tablet, the reading of a previously recorded vow. Oaths, administered by priests sometimes, added a religious and moral weight. To swear falsely was to risk divine disfavor, and such appeals to the gods were part of the system's moral authority. Scribes played a crucial role here. They kept records of rulings, wrote out contracts, and preserved precedents so that future officials could consult past decisions. The presence of written precedent made outcomes more predictable and allowed communities to feel that justice was a continuing, legible process. Let me tell a quiet story that illustrates how legal practice could bring calm back to ordinary life. Imagine a riverine village in the heat of summer. A farmer, Amit, comes to the city market and entrusts a merchant with a small sack of seed for safekeeping while he travels. When he returns, the merchant denies the deposit. The farmer stoops to the scribe's table, declares his loss, and produces two witnesses who recall seeing him hand the sack to the merchant. The scribe writes the complaint. Officials call both parties before a judge. The judge consults the tablets, an earlier list of merchant transactions, and listens to oath-sworn testimony. In the end, the merchant is ordered to return the seed and pay a small penalty for false denial. The farmer leaves with relief, his field likely to be sown on schedule. The process is deliberate, methodical, and oriented toward restoring the ordinary rhythm of life rather than spectacle. A few other gentle but telling details. Laws were sometimes carved in public places so people could see them. Proclamations were read aloud at temple gates, and laws themselves often began with a prologue describing the king as chosen by the gods to bring order. The famous stele with Hammurabi's code, for instance, bears an image of the king receiving authority from a deity and was meant to convey that law had both civic and sacred legitimacy, a calming assurance that rules were both human and divinely sanctioned. The surviving stele is an archaeological reminder of how law was made visible in public life. As this chapter draws to a close, imagine the scene at dusk: a scribe buffing the edge of a clay tablet, a priest murmuring an oath in a small courtyard, a family signing a document that will secure a child's future. Law in Babylonia was less a single harsh voice and more a chorus of small practices: recording, witnessing, sealing, and enforcing. that together created a dependable order for daily life. In the next chapter, we will travel deeper into material records themselves, how writing developed from accounting tokens to full cuneiform script, how scribal schools shaped memory, and how tablets preserved not just law, but poetry, astronomical observations, and household lists. We'll look at objects you can hold, tablets still warm from the kiln, wet with the impressions of an ancient stylus, each one a tiny, tactile bridge between past and present. Keep breathing slowly. Let the image of a lamplit archive linger as we rest. The quiet work of law is the quiet work of care. Chapter 5: Writing, Scribes, and the Memory of Clay. Breathe in slowly and let your shoulders drop. Imagine the calm scratch of a reed against soft clay, a small, steady rhythm that sounds like a slow heartbeat. This is the sound that changed everything in Babylonia. People learned to keep memory outside the mind. They learned to press marks into clay so promises, lists, and stories could be kept safe for years, even for generations. In this chapter, we will sit with that quiet invention. We will follow the hands that made it, the schools where it was taught, and the many small ways writing threaded into daily life. At first, people used little clay tokens. These were tiny shapes rolled or pinched by hand. A ball meant one sheep. A cylinder meant a measure of grain. People put these tokens into hollow clay envelopes to show a record of trade or debt. Then, slowly, they began to press the token shapes directly into a flat piece of clay instead of hiding the token. That step made writing simpler. Instead of waiting to open the envelope to see the tokens inside, the mark on the outside told the story. Over time, the marks grew more complex and more useful. The blunt reed stylus that made wedges was easier and faster than tiny shaped tokens. Those wedge marks are what we now call cuneiform. Rooms where children learned to write were quiet places. A boy or a girl would sit on a low bench. In front of them was a soft lump of clay and a thin reed cut to a small point. The first lessons were simple. Make a vertical wedge. Make a horizontal wedge. Press, press, press. The teacher would show a mark, and the student would copy it again and again until the hand learned the rhythm. Copying lists was how skills were built. Lists of animals, lists of numbers, lists of household goods. When the hand could do the basics, the student moved on to copying contracts and letters. The work made the mind orderly. It taught patience. It trained the eye to notice small differences in shape. It taught the sound of words by linking shapes to sounds and meanings. Scribes worked in many places. Some sat in a temple archive, where rows of tablets lay like sleeping stones. Some worked for a palace, writing the king's orders and keeping accounts of grain and labor. Others moved through the city with bundles of tablets, acting like moving memory. A merchant asked for a receipt, and the scribe made a tablet that would be proof of the deal. A family gave a dowry, and the scribe wrote the list of goods on a clay strip so both sides would remember. A court needed a witness, and the scribe wrote the sworn words that would make a claim official. In all these places, writing was a quiet tool that made life smoother and safer. It let people trust faraway promises because the words sat hard and true on clay. The life of a scribe was calm and steady, but not without pressure. Tablets had to be neat. A single wrong mark could change the meaning. Young scribes learned to correct mistakes by smoothing a small spot of clay and repressing the right wedge. they learned the small art of sealing a tablet with a tiny clay stamp that left a design. Seals were like signatures. A seal told who had made or approved a record. People rolled seals on the wet clay like a small, round stamp, and the impression was left as proof. Seals made the record personal and hard to deny. Scribes also kept more than business papers. They copied songs and tales and old prayers. They wrote letters between far places. They noted the rise and set of stars. They recorded dreams for kings who wanted to know their meaning. They wrote lists of plants, lists of stars, and lists of words in several languages. Some tablets held simple school exercises. Others held long, slow poems that could make the heart ache when read by lamplight. The same hands that wrote grain receipts could also write a story that made listeners hold their breath. This double life made the scribe a keeper of both the small and the large, the practical and the poetic. The school where scribes trained had rules that felt gentle but firm. Students learned to sit still. They learned to breathe and press with even force. They learned neat lines and even spacing. They learned to listen to the teacher's corrections and to welcome them. Mistakes were not only faults, they were lessons. A student might copy the same tablet 50 times until the hand moved without thinking, and the eye saw mistakes before the stylus touched clay. The practice gave muscles a memory. The lessons gave patience. In time, a student could write with the steady calm of someone who knows the value of careful work. We can imagine one young student, a girl named Ina, waking before dawn and carrying a small board with a lump of clay to school. She sits beside other children, the reed stylus held in her thumb and first 2 fingers. Her teacher, a kindly older scribe, moves among the rows and touches the damp clay lightly to show a deeper or shallower press. Ina copies lists of barley measures, then copies a short letter, then practices a short line of a poem about the moon. At noon, she eats bread with dates and listens to an older scribe read a long story about a king who crossed the desert to find water. Ina's body grows tired, but her hands keep steady. In the evening, she carries home a tablet she made for her father, a receipt showing that he has loaned a neighbor some wool. Her father smiles and presses his seal into the clay. The tablet will dry and keep the record. Ina sleeps, knowing she helped the family remember. Not all tablets were meant to last. Many were soft and left to dry in the sun. They did their work for a season and then crumbled. But some tablets were baked hard in a kiln or were cooked by accident in a house fire and then survived for thousands of years. Those hard tablets became time capsules. They held recipes for making bread, lists of soldiers, old letters, and laws. When we hold such a tablet now in our imagination, it is like touching a small, secret window into a lifelong past. The marks on clay are steady and small, and in them we can read the careful, slow mind of a people who wanted to remember. Scribes were not only record keepers, they were mediators between the private life of a family and the public world of the city. A marriage agreement became law because a scribe wrote it. A merchant's promise became proof because a scribe recorded it. A ruler's order became clear because a scribe sealed it. This made the scribe both powerful and humble. Their power was quiet. It came from the fact that the written word could be trusted. Their humility came from the long hours bent over clay, the simple motion of pressing a reed, the tiny corrections that made a line right. As night falls in our imagined city, picture an archive room lit by oil lamps. Shelves hold rows of tablets. Each tablet is like a small brick of memory. A scribe sits by a lamp, finishing a tablet that will record the day's work clearing a canal. Outside, water moves quietly in the channel, feeding the fields. The scribe places the tablet to dry on a flat shelf. The steady scratch of reeds has stopped for the day, but its echo lives in the shape of each wedge. The city moves because so many small records sit in storerooms and courtyards, because so many promises are laid down in clay. In the next chapter, we will follow how people used numbers and measures, how they counted the flow of grain and time, and how early math helped plan fields and storehouses. We will learn how simple lists grew into accurate calculations, and how counting kept the city balanced. For now, let the soft image of the reed and the clay rest in your mind. The quiet work of memory is themselves a kind of rest. Chapter 5. Complete. Chapter 6. Numbers, measures, and quiet calculations. Breathe in slowly and let the soft rhythm of the river settle inside you. In the last chapter, we met the hands that pressed words into clay. Now we turn to the numbers that followed those words, the small, steady counts that made work fair, fields planned, and houses true. Numbers in Babylonia were not loud or strange. They were practical tools, gentle aids that helped people keep promises, share food, build things, and watch the sky. Imagine a small room with low light and the smell of warm clay. A farmer brings a sack of grain to the temple. A scribe sits, reed in hand, and counts the measures. He does not simply guess. He has units and marks that everyone understands. These units are like the steps on a ladder. They help people say clearly, "This is how much. This is how long. This is how heavy." When everyone uses the same steps, trade moves smoothly and neighbors trust one another. The counting system in Babylonia looks different from the one we use every day, but it works in a steady, clever way. Instead of counting only by tens, they often grouped things up to 60. That may sound odd at first, but this way of counting makes certain kinds of trade and measurement very easy. For example, 60 can be broken into many neat parts. 30 is half, 20 is 1/3 of 60, and 12 is 1/5 of 60. This made it simple to split things into common shares. Think of a basket of grain shared among friends. With groups of 60, it was easy to give fair pieces without awkward fractions. Numbers were written with wedge-shaped marks like the letters on tablets, but the marks stood for amounts. A single mark might mean 1, a row of marks might mean 10, and so on. More important was the idea of place, where a mark's position changed its value. A sign in one place meant small units. The same sign, moved a little to the left, would mean 60 times more. This was the start of the place value idea, a quiet invention that lets us write big and small numbers without a long list of symbols. People used numbers every day. Farmers measured fields so they knew how much seed to plant. Builders counted bricks and set out rows so walls would stand straight. Merchants weighed silver to pay for oil and cloth. Sailors kept time on the river with simple counts so they could speak of arrival and departure. When rulers called for public work, officials used numbers to hire workers and to measure how much food to share. These small acts of counting created a calm order. Work could be planned and promises could be kept. Measures also had names people used often. There were measures for weight, for length, and for volume. A weight unit might be used to buy a small jar of oil. A length unit helped a builder lay out a doorway so it would fit a standard plank. A volume unit told how much grain would fill a jar. To modern ears, these names may sound foreign, but to the people living then, they were as familiar as a teacup or a footstep. Houses and shops had marked rods and bowls to test weights and measures, so no one felt cheated when buying bread or cloth. One calm story helps show how numbers breathed through life. Late one afternoon, a woman named Sharu brings her weaving to the market. She has woven a long cloth and wants silver for it. A merchant offers coins, and they agree on the price. Sharu asks that payment be made in measured silver, not promises. The merchant brings a small scale and a set of weights. The scribe writes the amount, and the seal is set. Sharu watches the scale, feeling relieved because the weight and measure are clear and visible. That small scene, a cellar, a scale, a clear number on clay, is one reason people trusted markets, and one reason the city kept calm. Numbers were also tools for time and the sky. Priests and watchers noticed patterns in the seasons and stars, and they used counts to mark months and years. They kept lists of the moon's shape and when it returned to each stage. These counts helped plan planting and festivals. Over a long time, the practice of counting the stars and the moon fed into careful records. When the moon rose, how long a season lasted, when a certain star appeared before dawn. This patient watching allowed people to plan ahead, to store grain before a dry year, and to name days for rituals. Builders used numbers in ways that felt tangible and steady. Suppose a team must build a grain store. They measure the ground, cut bricks to the same size, and count how many layers make the wall tall enough to keep grain dry. A small mistake in measure might let rain seep in or make a doorway too thin. So builders learned to measure carefully and to pass those rules on to apprentices. The same calm logic applied to canals. The slope of a channel needed small, steady drops, so water would flow but not rush and wash away the banks. To the eye, these were simple things. In practice, they were the careful use of number and rule that kept the city fed. Math also helped with trade that reached far from the river. A caravan that came from distant hills brought copper or spices. Merchants counted goods, converted weights into common units, and wrote agreements that a scribe could store. These records were like promises that could be checked later. Numbers turned the uncertain into the certain. They made bills that could be trusted across long roads. Learning to count was a part of school for boys and girls who trained to become scribes. They copied lists of numbers and practiced calculations. They learned tables that helped with division or with splitting grain among many people. The tables were like recipes. If you needed to divide 100 measures among 7 families, the table suggested a fair split. The hands that learned these tables grew steady and sure, and the city grew more predictable because so many people knew the same rules. There were limits, of course. No system is perfect. A dry year could still upset plans. Weights could be worn or broken. A long road might be delayed by mud, but the steady use of numbers meant that people had tools to cope. If grain ran low, the temple could look at records and decide how to share rations. If a builder made an error, the contract could show who must repair the work. Numbers made it possible to look back and see where mistakes began, and then to fix them. As night falls over our imagined city, think of a quiet table lit by a small lamp, A scribe lays out a clay tablet marked with neat wedges. Beside it sits a scale with 2 small dishes and a line of little clay weights. Outside, through an open doorway, someone counts the last row of bricks for a wall. A child practices counting pebbles, learning the sound of numbers as softly as a lullaby. The city rests because so many small counts and measures are in place. Plans have been made, stores checked, and the gentle certainty of tomorrow is possible because of the steady work of many hands. In the next chapter, we will look more closely at how people moved across this world. The boats on the river, the carts on the roads, and the long caravans across dry land. We will hear the soft sound of oars, the rattle of cartwheels, and the careful rhythms of trade that connected towns and distant lands. Until then, let the quiet image of the scale and the tablet stay with you as a small comfort. Numbers made more than math. They made trust. Chapter 7. Boats, Roads, and the Gentle Flow of Trade. Breathe in slowly and picture the river again, wide and slow, carrying the soft light of morning. The river is the city's quiet highway. Boats move like slow shadows, sliding along with the current. Some are small, made of bundles of reeds tied tight and set with a wooden frame. Some are wider, made of wood planks, with a flat deck for cargo. Others are long and narrow, meant to carry grain or jars down and up the river. Each boat has a purpose and a familiar crew. The boatmen know the sound of each shallow, the place where sand collects, the bend where the current grows stronger. They move with a calm skill born of many seasons. A boat in Babylonia starts its day before the sun is high. Men push off from the mud bank, oars dipping in slow rhythm. The air smells of wet clay, fish, and the smoke from a cooking fire. On deck, sacks of grain are stacked like small houses. Jars of oil sit in rows. A woven mat keeps the goods from sliding. The boatman watches the sky and the water. He steers by eye, by the pattern of reeds, by small landmarks, a crooked tree, a reed hut, a low wall. When the river is full in spring, boats can slip farther inland. When the river is low, crews use poles to push from the shallows and sometimes pull with ropes from the bank. This movement is quiet, steady work, like a long, slow breath. Canals are smaller rivers that people made by hand. They are tidy and graveled in places with stone or lined with clay to hold water. Canals carry water to the fields, but they also carry boats between towns. Along the canal, you find small landing places where goods move from boat to shore. People lift jugs and sacks, passing them along in a soft chain of hands. Warehouses sit near the water, cool and dark inside, storing grain and oil until the city needs them. In busy towns, the sound of work at the docks is constant but never harsh. A soft shout here, a rope's creak there, the slap of a small boat against the bank. Building boats takes skill. Wood must be shaped with care. Planks must fit tight so water cannot creep in. Craftsmen seal seams with bitumen, a sticky black substance that keeps the hull dry. Ropes are braided from plant fibers or animal hair. Sailmakers stitch cloth for simple sails that catch the wind when it helps. In some boats, a small shelter of woven reeds protects goods and people from the hot sun. The boat builder's work is patient and slow. A good boat will serve a family for many years and carry heavy loads without sinking. That quiet care matters. A failed plank or loose rope can mean lost goods and a long walk home. Rivers and canals link to roads. Roads are worn by many feet and cartwheels. long ruts pressed into the earth. Simple carts have 2 wheels and a flat bed. Oxen or donkeys pull them. The wheel itself is a steady invention, round and true. It lets a heavy load move more easily than a man's back could carry. Carts carry jars, reeds, and the small goods that do not need a boat. In wet seasons, roads become muddy and heavy. Travelers prefer the river then. In dry seasons, carts roll easily and reach places boats cannot touch. Bridges and small ferries help move people and carts across streams. The sound of a cart wheel is low and regular, a slow metronome moving through the landscape. Pack animals carry goods where carts cannot go. Donkeys are common helpers. They are steady and sure on uneven ground. In drier regions, people also used larger animals to pull heavier loads. A caravan moves like a small, slow town. Beasts with packs, a leader who knows the route, and a few guards to watch the animals and goods. The caravan rests at a shady spot by day, and at night, the animals are tied close while the men sleep on the ground. Water matters most on these trips. A caravan leader learns to read the land for springs and to know the distance between safe wells. This knowledge is quiet and practical, passed down from traveler to traveler. Long journeys bring goods from far hills and coasts to the city. Traders come with wood from distant forests, metal from far mines, and stones polished into beads. They bring rare things that make a family's home brighter. A piece of colored shell, a bead of bright blue stone, a small carved figure. Trade changes what people can make and wear. It brings new tools and new foods. It also brings stories. Travelers speak of strange places, new music, and different ways of making cloth. The city listens and borrows, and then makes these things its own, slowly mixing the new with the old. At the docks or gates, officials may check and weigh goods. Scales and measures make the trade fair. A scribe writes the transaction on a small clay tablet. A seal shows who carried the goods and who agreed to pay. These small steps keep trade honest and steady. Traders learn to trust these hands and marks because they know the canal and road systems require predictability. A caravan with a sealed load can cross many towns without each town guessing its contents. This trust is quiet and fragile, but it holds the web of trade together. Safety on the road and river is a real concern. Sometimes bandits wait near a bend in a trade route. Sometimes a storm surprises a boat. Cities hire guards or ask travelers to go in groups. A merchant who moves with care will pack goods so they are hard to steal. A simple practice helps. Labels and seals that make each load personal. If something is lost, a scribe can use the records to seek justice. The law and the methods of writing we spoke of earlier move quietly with the goods and protect the flow of trade. Trade also shapes people's lives in gentle ways. A craftsperson who learns a new pattern from a passing trader will make a new cloth for her family. A child sees a bright bead and asks where it came from, and a parent tells the story of the trader who crossed the dry plain. Food tastes change when new oils or spices arrive. Music borrows a new tune. In a quiet way, trade is a soft teacher that fills a city with small, steady changes over many years. People adapt, keep what works, and the city grows richer in taste and skill. Let us hold a small scene to keep in mind. Picture a flat barge loaded with cedar logs coming down river, the wood dark and scented. Eshar, a boatman, stands at the stern, guiding with a long pole. 2 young men on the deck tie ropes around the logs, passing them with patient rhythm. At the riverside, the log will be lifted and carried to a temple yard where carpenters shape it into beams for a new roof. A child watches and dreams of building. The logs arrived by river. The roof will stand for years, and the whole town benefits. That slow chain, forest to river to city, is the quiet engine of life. As the day ends, picture a caravan returning with a small chest of bright blue beads. At the city gate, a guard takes the sealed tablet from the merchant, and a scribe copies the details into the record. The beads will be shown in the market the next morning, and people will gather to see the color that has come from far away. A simple exchange, a slow closing of a loop, and the city breathes on. In the next chapter, we will move from movement to belief. We will enter the temple and listen to the low chant of priests. We will climb a ziggurat and imagine the view from its steps. We will hear the stories people told about the sky and river, and how those stories shaped daily life. Keep your breath even and deep. Let the sound of oars and cartwheels fade into a soft hum as you rest. Chapter 8. Religion, Temples, and the Voices of the Gods. Breathe in slowly and let your body soften. Imagine a tall, stepped building rising from the city like a calm island above the rooftops. This is the ziggurat, the temple's base, the place where earth reaches a little closer to sky. As you breathe out, picture the temple courtyard. Clean stone, bowls of water, little lamps that glow warm in the evening, and priests moving in slow, careful steps. In Babylonia, religion is not only about belief. It is the shape people give to fear and hope, a way to say thank you for good harvests and to ask for help when rivers run low. It is woven into the day, steady and close. Temples are many things at once. They are places to pray and to make offerings. They are also storehouses and schools. Grain sits in cool bins, oil stores in jars, and tools hang tidy on hooks. The temple holds objects that matter. A statue of the city's god or goddess, carved with care, dressed in cloth, given jewels. People come to see the statue, to leave an offering of bread or a bit of oil, and to ask the god for help. Priests keep the statue clean, change its clothes, and feed it in a ritual way. This may sound strange when we think of a wooden figure as a guest, but the people then considered the statue a living presence, a place where the god could rest and be near their city. Rituals are soft, slow acts. A priest lights a lamp in the morning and sets a small plate of food before the statue. He sprinkles water and speaks words that the heart understands more than the ear. The sound of the prayer is low and even, a small rhythm that helps people feel present. At certain times, the temple opens wider. Festivals bring music, banners, and processions. People walk together through the streets, carrying images, singing, and sharing bread. A festival is a city's way of remembering that it belongs to something larger than its walls. It binds neighbors together, calms worry, and gives a rhythm to the year. Priests have many jobs. They keep accounts. They teach children to read and write. They perform rituals, and they listen to people who come with troubles. A woman might bring a sick child and ask the priest to pray. A farmer might ask for a blessing for his field. A trader might come to seal a promise before the god, making the deal feel more sure. Priests also practice divination, a quiet art of listening for signs. They read the sky, the movement of birds, or the shape of liver inside a sacrificed animal. This sounds strange to modern ears, but it was a way to make sense of a world that could feel wild and uncertain. Divination is not magic that forces events. It is a way to hear possible paths and choose carefully. Dreams matter in this world. People tell their dreams to priests and to wise men who can read them. A dream might be a warning or a gentle nudge. Kings kept dream interpreters close, for a dream could shape a decision about a campaign or a building. Ordinary people, too, trusted dreams. A dream of a river overflowing might mean a good year if the dreamer made the right offerings. The practice of listening to dreams is another gentle way to seek calm. If you can name a fear, you can act on it, and that action, however small, eases the weight. The gods of Babylonia are many. Each city often had a chief god or goddess who watched over its people and land. The sky, the storm, the river, and the earth each had a voice. Some gods were gentle and kind, others were stern or quick to anger. People told stories of these gods to explain why things happened, why a drought came, why a child survived a fever, or why a trader found a good road. These stories were part of daily life. They gave meaning to small things: the sudden good catch of fish, the date palm bearing more fruit that year, or the calm of a clean, repaired canal. Religion made these small things part of a larger story. The temple's daily life creates a calm order. Morning prayers, midday offerings, and evening lamplight are steady beats that give the city a rhythm. People like rhythm because it helps them know what to expect. It makes busy days feel less sharp. Even the sound of hammers and ovens slows down when the temple bell signals a pause. The temple is also a place of learning. Children who study in temple schools learn not only to write, but also the songs, prayers, and myths that bind the city. A child who can write a hymn also learns to care for a small lamp and to speak kindly when others are in need. Sometimes, temples hold festivals tied to the cycles of nature. When the moon looks full and the fields are ready, people gather to give thanks. There are processions where statues leave the temple and move through streets, where drums beat a slow, steady rhythm, and where people drop flowers and grain along the way. In these moments, the whole city breathes as one. People who might often go their separate ways come together and feel part of a wider whole. That feeling is quiet, but strong. It is one reason communities endure hard years. They know they will come together again in song and offering. Temples also touch politics. A king may come to the temple to make a public promise or to ask for blessing before a project. The priest's words can support a ruler, and a ruler's gifts can support a temple. This partnership can be gentle or tense, but it is always a reminder that human affairs and the divine story are connected. When a king helped rebuild a temple wall, people felt he cared for both their lives and their gods. When a priest recorded a king's promise on a tablet, that promise lasted in memory. Let us imagine a small, calm story to hold in the mind. A woman named Mara brings a small jar of oil to the temple. Her child has been weak, and Mara is tired from tending the field and the house. She enters the quiet courtyard, her steps soft on the flagstones. A priest greets her kindly, takes the jar, and leads her to the statue. He says a few words, sprinkles water, and sets the jar before the image. He writes Mara's name on a small clay ticket that will be placed with the offering so the god may remember. Mara leaves feeling lighter. The act does not make her life perfect, but it gives her a small comfort. She has done what she could, and that helps her sleep tonight. Temples also keep time by watching the sky. Priests mark the month by watching the moon and note the stars' positions. They plan festivals this way, matching ritual to the world outside. Watching the sky is patient work. It asks for steady eyes and a long view. It teaches people the rhythm of the year and helps farmers know when to plant and when to harvest. That patient watching is another way the temple helps the city rest. When rituals match the seasons, people feel more in tune with the land. As this chapter closes, picture the temple at dusk. Lamps glow in small niches. The statue is draped in new cloth. Priests walk slowly through the courtyard, voices low. In the distance, you hear a faint procession stopping and sharing bread. The temple keeps its watch through night and day, guiding the city with ritual, learning, and calm order. In the next chapter, we will walk into people's homes and hear about family life, food, and the small rhythms that shape each household. For now, let the image of the temple keep you steady, a quiet place at the city's center. Chapter 9. Home, family, and the quiet rhythm of daily life. Breathe in slowly and settle into a calm place. Picture a small house made of warm, sun-baked brick. The walls are thick, holding the day's heat and the night's cool. A low doorway opens into a courtyard where the family keeps a few pots, a drying rack, and a small oven. This is the center of most people's life. Here, daily tasks are done, stories are told, and small comforts are shared. In Babylonia, the home is a soft, steady world where the rhythm of life moves in gentle circles from morning to night. Morning begins simply. A woman wakes before the sun and lights a small lamp. She checks the cooking jars and the water jars, sprinkles a little water on the courtyard flagstones to cool them, and opens a woven basket with flat loaves of bread inside. Bread is the basic food of many households. Grain, ground with a hand mill, is mixed and baked on hot stone or in a clay oven. The smell of warm bread spreads through the house and into the street. Often bread is shared with neighbors, a small act that keeps bonds strong. A pot of thin beer may be made in many homes. Beer is a mild drink that fills the belly and is safer than some water that might be risky to drink. It is made from barley and often flavored with date syrup or wheat. Men and women both drink it in small cups at the end of a long day. Children sometimes sip watered-down beer, and it serves as a simple source of calories and comfort when work is hard. Food includes more than bread and beer. Fresh fish from the river appears on some tables, especially near the water. Dates are sweet gifts from palm trees and are used to sweeten porridge or to make small cakes. Onions and garlic are common, and lentils or chickpeas add protein. Meat is eaten, but often on special days or when a family can spare the cost. Milk and cheese from sheep and goats add variety. Salt and herbs bring flavors together. Simple meals are eaten on low mats, with people sitting close and sharing bowls. The act of sharing is itself a quiet ritual of care. The house is also a place of work. Women weave cloth on looms set in shaded rooms or on the roof where the wind can help dry yarn. Weaving is slow and steady work, the motions like a calm song of the hand. Men may repair a wheel or mend a plow. Children help by carrying water in small jars or by tending a small flock of pigeons kept on the roof for eggs. Crafts done at home also bring goods for the market. A woman might spin wool into thread to sell. A potter might shape simple jars to trade, or a basket maker might weave mats from reeds gathered at the riverbank. Work and home are often the same place, and this closeness makes life feel continuous. family life has many small rules that keep order and kindness. Elders are respected. They tell stories of former seasons and give advice about planting, marriage, and how to treat neighbors. Children learn by watching and by doing. They do not only play, they learn to help. Play is slow too. Children make small clay animals, rolling the soft river mud into shapes, and they copy the work of adults as if learning by rehearsal. A child might watch the potter and learn to shape a small cup. Apprenticeships often begin at home. A father may teach his son or daughter the craft he knows, and that trade may pass down for generations. Marriage and family bonds are often formalized with agreements. A dowry may be recorded in clay to show what a woman brings into the new household. Marriage is not only a private promise, but also a small public act that links two families together. Weddings are times of song and simple feasts. Neighbors bring small gifts, help bake bread, and the new couple begins life with small rituals that mark the change. The bond between families helps create wider safety nets. If illness or loss happens, neighbors bring food, guard a field, or sit with a grieving family so they do not feel alone. A house holds a small shrine sometimes, a place for a family god or a small statue. People make little offerings there, breadcrumbs, a bit of oil, a tiny bead, to ask for help or to say thanks. These small acts give comfort. When a child is ill, a parent goes to a shrine, lights a lamp, and says a private prayer. These quiet rituals help people feel they have done all they can. And that simple action eases worry the way a warm shawl eases a chill. Health in the household is mostly practical and gentle. Midwives help when women give birth. They know which herbs soothe and which poultices to lay. For cuts and sores, a healer might use plant pastes or clean dressings. When a family member is sick, a neighbor may bring broth and help with chores. There are also wise women and men who know older remedies and who can read simple signs. They watch the patient's pulse, test urine, or look for symptoms tied to certain seasons. The care may not always save every life, but small, steady actions often help a body recover. Birth is a time of both hope and quiet worry. A midwife stays close, offering water, warmth, and steady hands. After birth, the new mother rests while family and neighbors bring prepared food and help with chores. A small naming ceremony may follow. Naming is important. It places the child within the family line and gives elders a moment to bless the newcomer. The child grows surrounded by touch, hands that feed, that warm, and that guide, growing into the slow rhythm of household life. Death is also part of home life. Families prepare the body with care, washing it and placing it in a small, clean cloth. There may be a simple burial or a cremation, depending on custom. The family gathers, mourns, and remembers. They tell stories about the person, the way they laughed, or the small deeds they did. These stories are not loud. They are steady and soft, a way to keep a life present in memory. Small rituals in the home, lighting lamps on the anniversary of a death, leaving a bowl of food at the shrine, keep the memory alive and connect the living to those who have gone before. Household law and respect are kept in small ways. Neighbors do not take what is not offered. Water rights and usage are known and shared. If a dispute arises about a damaged wall, a lost animal, or a debt, it is often first discussed in the neighborhood with elders. If needed, a scribe may write a record, or a priest may witness an oath. These steps calm tempers and keep the community close. Clothing is simple, but careful. A person may wear a linen or wool garment, its edges neat. Children wear short wraps for play, and elders have longer robes that mark their status. Jewelry is small and meaningful, a bead from a distant trader, a copper pin, or a small amulet to ward off harm. These items carry stories. You can tell a little of a person's life by the things they wear. A patched elbow shows a worker's hands. A bead chain suggests a gifted object from a friend or traveler. The home is also a place of learning beyond scribe schools. Parents teach songs, short prayers, how to mend a net, how to plant a date palm, and how to count measures. The simple lessons of daily life, patience, care, steady work, are passed down in small moments. A child who helps grind grain learns to value food and the hands that made it. A child who helps mend a basket learns that small work keeps the house whole. Neighbors are essential. Walls are not high. Doors open into shared alleyways. People borrow tools and sugar their bread with date syrup from a friend's jar. When a rainstorm threatens, neighbors help hold tarps and move goods to safety. When a family celebrates, neighbors join with simple gifts. This closeness creates a gentle safety net. People know each other's needs and respond with small acts of help. Evenings are quiet and warm. Families sit on mats, eat a simple stew or roasted fish, and tell stories. A parent might sing a soft song while rocking a child to sleep. The words are few and the rhythm steady. The lamplight makes shadows on the wall, and the city feels near and safe. This is a small, tender world, where days flow into nights, and life moves in a slow, familiar loop. As this chapter ends, hold the image of a small family courtyard. A child curled by a warm oven, a woman checking the bread, a man leaning on a doorpost watching the sunset, and the lamp that will burn softly through the night. Home life in Babylonia is made of many small comforts and duties. It is not always easy, but it is full of care and calm rituals that help people live together. In the next chapter, we will explore crafts and tools more closely, how pottery is made for households, how weavers set patterns, how metal is shaped for tools and jewelry, and how these crafts shape daily life and trade. For now, breathe out and let the quiet rhythm of the household rest with you. Chapter 10: Crafts, Tools, and the Gentle Art of Making. Take a deep breath and imagine a quiet workshop where the soft light of morning filters through a small window. The air carries a faint smell of clay, wood, and warm metal. In Babylonia, the art of making is everywhere. People shape their lives and their surroundings with careful hands, using tools, crafts, and small, steady work that connects the home, the market, and the temple. Crafts are not hurried. They are patient acts, slow and deliberate, and they carry both function and beauty. Pottery is one of the oldest and most essential crafts. Picture a woman at a low wheel, the clay cool and soft beneath her fingers. She spins the wheel with her foot, shaping a jar for grain or oil. Her hands press, lift, and smooth. Each turn is deliberate, each jar a little different, yet all fit their purpose. Some jars are plain and sturdy, used for storage. Others carry delicate patterns or simple painted lines, marks that tell which family made them or what they contain. Once shaped, the pots are left to dry in the sun, then fired in a kiln. The kiln glows gently, warming the clay until it is strong and ready to hold goods safely. These simple vessels travel from home to market, from temple to trader, connecting people in quiet ways. Weaving is another gentle art that fills life with color and comfort. Women sit at looms, often near the house or on the roof where the breeze helps dry threads. They pass the shuttle carefully, thread by thread, creating patterns that are simple or elaborate. A strip of cloth may be a wrap for the family, a mat, or a gift for a neighbor. Patterns tell stories in small ways. A line may echo a river's bend, a diamond may mark a sacred symbol, and a fringe may show care in finishing. Children watch, learning the rhythm of hands moving with thread. The work is repetitive, calm, and satisfying, producing both beauty and utility. Metalwork is quieter, but no less important. Men and women shape bronze, copper, and later iron for tools, weapons, and ornaments. Imagine a small furnace glowing, smoke rising softly. A metalworker dips a rod into molten bronze, shaping a small blade or a pin. Hammers tap lightly on an anvil, shaping metal into the desired form. A carefully worked knife can slice grain, skin fish, or prepare food safely. A pin can hold a garment in place. Small items like bracelets or beads are polished and smooth, worn as decoration or offered as gifts. Each object carries skill and care, and the touch of a maker who understands their craft. Woodworking is equally vital. Craftsmen cut planks and shape beams for houses, furniture, or boats. The smell of cedar or palm wood drifts through workshops. A carpenter uses a plane to smooth a surface, a chisel to carve a detail, and rope to bind parts together. Even small tools are made with care: a bowl for flour, a small spoon, a peg for a door. Every item is part of a larger rhythm: home, market, river, temple. Tools enable work, and their quiet creation shapes the daily life of the city. Jewelry and personal ornaments are crafted with both pride and meaning. Beads are made from stone, glass, and shell. A bead maker drills tiny holes with a bow drill, careful not to break the fragile piece. Necklaces, bracelets, and amulets are strung with care, sometimes in patterns that tell a story or carry a symbol for protection. Gold and silver are shaped and polished for wealth and status, often worn during festivals or gifted to mark important occasions. Even small items connect people to each other and to their gods. Baskets, mats, and simple household implements are made from reeds, palm fibers, and grasses. A weaver bends long strips into a container for grain or a mat for sleeping. These objects are plain, but strong and useful. Their creation follows patterns learned from elders, passed slowly from hand to hand. The rhythm of the fingers, the sound of weaving, and the quiet focus are as calming as the objects themselves. Crafts are not just for the home. They connect to trade and community. A potter's jars travel to markets. A weaver's cloth reaches neighboring cities. A metal worker's knife travels on a caravan. Each item tells a story of the person who made it, the tools used, and the care invested. Even a simple clay jar carries the labor of hands and the knowledge of generations. Crafts give people the tools to live, the objects to share, and the small comforts that make a house a home. Let us pause on a single scene. In a quiet courtyard, a young girl sits with a basket of reeds, weaving a small mat, while her younger brother shapes clay into a tiny cup. Their mother hums a gentle tune while checking bread in a small oven. A father sharpens a knife, listening to the river in the distance. The day moves slowly, and each action connects to the next. The mat will hold food, the cup may carry water, the knife will help cook, and the bread will fill the family's bellies. Life unfolds as a chain of small, patient acts. Crafts also teach patience and observation. A weaver must notice a thread slightly out of place and correct it. A potter must feel the clay's moisture and balance pressure carefully. A metalworker must watch heat and timing. These quiet lessons carry into other parts of life. Care in the home, trust in trade, attention to the needs of neighbors. Craft becomes a mirror for life itself, showing that steady, careful work shapes not only objects, but also character. Even in marketplaces, crafts are central. A stall displays neat rows of jars, woven mats, bronze tools, and jewelry. Buyers touch the objects gently, feeling their weight, inspecting details, and choosing what will serve their home best. Trades are quiet and measured. A scribe may record a purchase, and the buyer leaves with a simple package, the sound of footsteps soft on the packed earth. Crafts and tools move quietly through the city, linking homes, markets, and temples in a continuous rhythm. As night falls, imagine the soft glow of lamps in workshops. Tools rest, hands are washed, and unfinished objects await another day. The air smells of clay, wood, and oil. Each item made and shaped carries the calm skill of its maker and the small, steady pulse of the city. Crafts are more than work. They are a quiet, patient way to touch life, to leave traces, and to provide comfort for family and neighbor alike. In the next chapter, we will turn our attention to the gardens, fields, and irrigation systems that feed the city, exploring the calm, patient labor that brings life from the soil to the table. Let the image of hands shaping clay and weaving fibers remain with you as a gentle anchor for your imagination. Chapter 11: Gardens, Fields, and the Gentle Flow of Water. Take a slow, deep breath and imagine the city's walls opening to green fields beyond. The sun is soft, the air carries the smell of wet soil, and the river flows steadily, reflecting the sky. In Babylonia, life depends on the careful management of land and water. Gardens, fields, and irrigation systems are the quiet work of many hands, shaping growth with patience and attention. Water is precious, and the people have learned to guide it, to share it, and to use it to sustain life. The river, slow and constant, is the lifeline of agriculture. During the flood season, water spills into the fields, leaving behind dark, fertile silt. Farmers watch the river carefully, noting the rising and falling of its surface. They plan planting around its movements. Canals carry water into fields that the river cannot reach directly. Simple gates and channels direct the flow, allowing water to reach rice paddies, barley plots, or vegetable gardens. The process is steady and deliberate. A field flooded too much or too little can mean the difference between a harvest that fills the city or one that leaves it hungry. Fields are divided into small plots, each cared for by a family or a group of workers. The soil is tilled with a wooden plow, often pulled by oxen. Plowing is rhythmic, a slow, repetitive motion that turns the earth and prepares it for seed. Farmers plant barley, wheat, and lentils by hand, scattering grains carefully, then covering them with a light layer of soil. Each seed is small, but it carries the promise of food. Farmers watch the weather and the sky, noting cloud shapes, the wind, and the scent of rain, learning subtle signs that guide planting, tending, and harvesting. Gardens near homes offer a smaller, calmer harvest. Courtyards and rooftops may hold pots with herbs, vegetables, and fruit trees. Dates and figs are common, their sweet smell filling the air. Onions, garlic, and leeks grow in small beds, easy to tend. Herbs like mint, Coriander and dill are grown in rows or pots, picked carefully for cooking or medicine. A family garden is a place of calm labor. Daily attention, watering, pruning, checking for pests, creates small rewards, fresh food, fragrant leaves, and a sense of accomplishment. Irrigation channels are the quiet veins of the land. They are dug carefully by hand, lined with clay to prevent seepage, and adjusted to guide water evenly. Small gates made of wood or reeds control flow. Families or small groups take turns tending these channels, removing debris, and ensuring each plot receives enough water. Cooperation is essential. If one field receives too much water, the neighboring land may flood. The system requires steady attention, patience, and trust among neighbors. Floods, while potentially destructive, are also gifts. When the river rises in spring, it brings silt, rich and dark, which renews the soil. Farmers prepare dikes and channels to guide the water, letting it spread where it is needed and holding it back where crops are young. Watching a flood requires calm focus. People know the signs of overfull canals, the smell of wet mud, and the sound of rising water. The knowledge of generations is passed down. Which areas flood first, which plants need protection, which paths are safe to travel. Harvest is a season of rhythm and quiet celebration. Barley and wheat are cut with small sickles, stalks gathered into bundles and dried. Lentils and beans are picked by hand, placed into baskets, and carried to the threshing floor. There, the grain is separated from the chaff by beating or winnowing with the wind. Each act is slow, repeated many times, and requires attention. Families and neighbors work together, sharing the labor and the reward. The smell of dry grain and warm sun is comforting, marking the passage of time and the reward of patient work. Animal care is intertwined with agriculture. Sheep, goats, and cattle are tended carefully. Sheep provide wool for weaving. Goats provide milk and cheese. Cattle pull plows and carry loads. Grazing is monitored to protect crops and prevent overuse of land. Water is carried in troughs, and salt or mineral blocks are placed to keep animals healthy. The steady work of tending animals follows the rhythm of day and night, quiet but essential to life. Seasonal cycles are central to planning. Farmers observe the phases of the moon and the stars to decide when to plant and when to harvest. Certain festivals mark the start of planting, the peak of growth, and the final harvest. These cycles connect the city, temple, and fields, creating a sense of order and calm. The rhythm of nature becomes a rhythm of life, and people move in harmony with it. Let us imagine a single scene to hold in your mind. A man walks along a small canal, guiding water into his barley field. The soil is damp. The green shoots bend gently in the morning breeze. Nearby, a woman carries a basket of young vegetables from the garden, offering a few to a neighbor. Children run alongside, helping where they can, laughing softly, their small hands learning care. Oxen plod steadily through the tilled soil, pulling a plow in rhythm with the farmer's footsteps. The river murmurs in the distance, a soft, constant companion. Every action flows gently into the next, creating harmony between human effort and nature's rhythm. Water also nourishes life beyond fields. Fish are caught in small nets and ponds near the river, adding protein to the diet. Reed beds provide materials for mats and baskets. Mud is gathered for bricks, keeping the city strong and the home warm. Each resource is used with care, creating balance and calm. Life in Babylonia is shaped by water, steady labor, and thoughtful attention to small details. As evening falls, imagine the fields in soft light. The canals glisten, the crops bend gently, and families return home, carrying small bundles of food. The rhythm of planting, tending, and harvesting slows with the setting sun, leaving a quiet sense of accomplishment. The river flows steadily, reflecting stars and lamplight from the city. In the next chapter, we will explore education and writing, the calm art of learning, and how knowledge flows through generations. Let the image of the river and field stay with you, a steady heartbeat beneath the city's life. Chapter 12: Education, Writing, and the Flow of Knowledge. Take a deep, slow breath and let your mind settle on the quiet rhythm of a classroom long ago. In Babylonia, knowledge is held carefully, passed from teacher to student in soft, deliberate steps. Education is not rushed. It is a gentle river, flowing steadily through generations, shaping both the mind and the character of those who learn. Writing, in particular, is a bridge between people, between the present and the future, and between the mortal world and the stories of the gods. The school, or tablet house, is often part of a temple or a well-kept home. Inside, the air is faintly scented with clay and reed ink. Children sit on low mats, tablets of soft clay before them, and a stylus in hand. The teacher, often patient and measured in tone, demonstrates shapes and symbols slowly, repeating the forms for clarity. Writing is called cuneiform, and each wedge-shaped mark is made with care, pressed gently into clay while it is still soft. The act of writing is rhythmic, one press, one line, one thought at a time. This rhythm brings calm as well as knowledge. Learning begins with simple symbols. A mark for water is drawn again and again, a mark for field, a mark for house. Repetition is gentle but firm, and children gain comfort in the consistency. As they grow, they combine marks into words, words into short phrases, phrases into simple letters or accounts. Some children learn to write lists, grain in storehouses, cattle counted by families, or gifts delivered to temples. Others learn to copy myths and stories of gods, kings, and heroes. The act of writing is both practical and sacred, a connection to the living city and the eternal stories that shape its people. Clay tablets are the tools of learning. Soft when written upon, they are later dried in the sun or baked in a kiln to last for generations. The teacher shows the student how to hold the stylus, how to press each wedge at the right angle, and how to correct mistakes. Corrections are done by smoothing the clay gently, not hurriedly, a reminder that learning is patient work. Even a small mistake can be a lesson in care, and the act of repeating it builds both skill and mindfulness. Education in Babylonia is often connected to work. Students may learn to record goods, to keep accounts, or to write contracts. They may copy recipes for medicine, simple math problems for trade, or prayers for the temple. Learning is practical, but it also teaches a larger sense of order. A child who can write a record understands the importance of accuracy, responsibility, and the calm repetition of careful work. Knowledge is tied to life itself, the crops, the river, the home, and the temple. Mathematics flows gently alongside writing. Counting and measuring are taught carefully, using small pebbles or sticks. Fractions and multiplication are introduced slowly, often connected to daily life, dividing grain, measuring fields, or calculating workers' tasks. Numbers are not abstract. They are part of rhythm and balance. A well-measured field produces steady crops. A well-kept account prevents disputes. Mathematics teaches attention, patience, and calm observation. Stories are also central to education. Young students copy myths of gods, kings, and heroes. They learn about Enlil, the powerful god of air, Ishtar, goddess of love and war, Marduk, the protector of Babylon. Stories are repeated slowly, read aloud in a calm voice, allowing children to absorb lessons of courage, care, and respect. Through stories, students understand their culture and the rhythms of life. The river rises and falls, the crops grow and are harvested, and humans live between effort and patience. Teachers are not only instructors, but also guides. They observe a student's progress quietly, offering gentle correction or praise. The teacher may speak slowly, telling a small story to illustrate a point. Children watch, listen, and imitate. Learning is a conversation as much as a task. The soft cadence of instruction helps the mind settle. Mistakes are accepted as part of growth, and each correction becomes a calm reminder of careful attention. Writing is also a way to preserve memory. Records of trade, marriage agreements, and religious offerings are written on tablets and stored carefully. When a tablet is baked or pressed into clay, it becomes a small time capsule. Future generations can touch it and understand the life of those who came before. This practice creates a sense of calm continuity. Human effort, recorded carefully, bridges years and centuries. Even a small clay tablet with a simple list carries the weight of daily life and the gentle pulse of memory. Learning continues beyond the classroom. Children observe elders, farmers, potters, and priests, noting their methods and patterns. They may assist in copying texts for the temple or help record grain deliveries. Observation teaches patience, focus, and respect for skill. Knowledge is not rushed. It flows gently through the city like the river that nourishes the fields. Let us picture a small scene to anchor this chapter. A boy sits near a temple wall, clay tablet in hand, stylus poised. The teacher's voice is calm and soft, guiding the boy's hand as he presses the first wedge. Nearby, a girl repeats a line from a hymn, her voice steady, almost a song. Tablets line the walls, recording small details, offerings, trade, and prayers. Outside, the river murmurs, fields sway gently in the breeze, and life moves in a steady rhythm. Learning is not separate from life. It is woven into the fabric of daily experience, connecting thought, effort, and care. Evening in the schoolhouse is quiet. Children store their tablets, wash their hands, and return home, carrying not only clay and stylus, but also the calm rhythm of learning. Knowledge is a gentle gift, patient and steady, offering both skill and a sense of connection to the wider world. Students leave with hands tired but steady, minds calm but alert, and hearts aware of their place in the steady flow of life. In the next chapter, we will explore trade and merchants, following how goods, ideas, and small objects move through the city and beyond. We will see how quiet, patient commerce shapes relationships, wealth, and the pulse of daily life. For now, hold the image of clay, stylus, and the river outside the schoolhouse as a gentle, anchoring thought. Chapter 13, Babylonian Astronomy and Astrology. Take a slow, deep breath and imagine a quiet night over Babylonia. The sky stretches wide and dark, dotted with countless stars. The river reflects a soft shimmer of moonlight, and the gentle rustle of palm trees adds a calming rhythm. Above the city, priests and scholars lift their eyes to the heavens, tracing the movements of stars and planets with careful, patient attention. In Babylonia, the night sky is not just beautiful, it is a map, a calendar, and a guide to life itself. Babylonians were among the first people to observe the cosmos in a structured way. They noted the rising and setting of stars, the phases of the moon, and the slow wanderings of planets across the sky. Each movement had meaning, linked to the cycles of nature, agriculture, and human life. They recorded these observations on clay tablets, pressing symbols and patterns with a stylus, creating a quiet record that would guide their civilization for centuries. Imagine the calm, meticulous work of a scholar at night, drawing each symbol with care, connecting the heavens with life on earth. The stars were grouped into constellations, patterns that helped people navigate both the land and time. The Pleiades, shining like a small cluster of lanterns, signaled planting seasons. Orion, bright and steady, marked other times of the year. Each constellation carried a story, often tied to gods, heroes, or natural forces. Observing them required patience, nights spent under the cool sky, noting positions and watching their slow movement. The act itself was meditative, a gentle rhythm connecting humans to the vast universe above. The moon was especially important. Babylonians watched its phases closely, creating the lunar calendar. Each waxing and waning shape marked time for planting, festivals, and rituals. Priests would note the exact position of the moon, recording it on small tablets. Families used these calendars to plan daily life. The slow change of the moon was a quiet reminder of nature's rhythm, teaching people to align their actions with the steady pulse of time. Planets, or wandering stars, also fascinated Babylonians. They noticed the irregular paths of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, naming each and associating them with deities. Venus, bright and beautiful, was connected to the goddess Ishtar. Mars, red and distant, carried associations with strength and war. Observing these celestial wanderers required calm focus. A scholar might spend hours watching the slow, steady motion, marking its position, and predicting its next appearance. This careful observation was both practical and spiritual, linking daily life to the movement of the heavens. Astronomy and astrology were intertwined. Priests would interpret celestial events as omens, guiding kings and citizens alike. A particular alignment might signal a good harvest, a potential conflict, or a favorable time for a festival. These interpretations were made slowly, with careful thought and consultation of past records. Far from creating fear, this practice gave people a sense of calm structure and foresight, helping them plan for the uncertainties of life. The ziggurats, Babylon's towering temples, were closely connected to the stars. Their terraces provided elevated points for observation. Priests and scholars climbed these steps to study the heavens, noting patterns invisible from the ground. The temple itself became a quiet observatory, a place where religion, science, and daily life intertwined. Observing from this height, the city below seemed calm and orderly, mirroring the predictable movements above. Babylonian astronomers also created star charts and records that tracked eclipses and other rare events. These were carefully noted and studied for generations. Imagine the quiet concentration required, a small tablet in hand, stylus poised, candlelight flickering, eyes lifted to the dark sky. Each observation built a legacy of knowledge, a slow accumulation of understanding that connected present observers to future generations. Mathematics supported these observations. Scholars used numbers to calculate the cycles of the moon, the length of the year, and the timing of festivals. Measurements were exact, gentle, and deliberate. Even small errors were corrected carefully, as precision mattered for both agriculture and religious rituals. The combination of careful watching, patient calculation, and thoughtful interpretation created a civilization in tune with both the earth and the cosmos. Imagine a single scene to hold in your mind. A young apprentice sits on a terrace with a seasoned priest. They trace the slow movement of Venus with a slender finger, marking its path in a clay tablet. Below, the city sleeps peacefully, the river flowing gently, lamps glowing softly in homes. The stars wheel overhead in quiet rhythm, and the apprentice learns the calm patience needed to observe, record, and interpret. Each gesture, each mark on the tablet connects heaven and earth, time and life in a serene, ongoing flow. Babylonian astronomy and astrology also influenced culture, art, and storytelling. Stories of gods and heroes were mirrored in the sky. Songs and chants were timed to celestial events. Rituals coincided with lunar phases. The act of watching the heavens became a daily meditation, a quiet way to align human life with the steady pulse of nature and the cosmos. As night deepens, imagine the final scene: scholars closing their tablets, candles guttering softly, and the city below resting in shadow. The stars continue their patient paths, distant but familiar, guiding the rhythm of life quietly and steadily. The calm flow of the heavens is mirrored in human effort, observation, record-keeping, and careful attention. Knowledge flows like a river, steady and eternal. In the next chapter, we will explore Babylonian medicine and healing practices, the gentle art of caring for the body, herbs, and remedies, and the calm, methodical ways Babylonians approached health and well-being. Hold the image of stars, moonlight, and serene observation as a soft anchor for your imagination. Chapter 14: Medicine, Healing, and the Gentle Art of Care. Take a slow, deep breath and let your mind settle on a quiet Babylonian home or temple courtyard. Imagine soft light filtering through a small window or a clay doorway. The air is warm and carries faint scents of herbs and oils. In Babylonia, caring for the body is both practical and spiritual, blending observation, gentle treatment, and patient attention. Healing is not hurried. It is a careful, deliberate process, guided by knowledge passed down through generations. Babylonian medicine is rooted in both nature and observation. Healers, often called ashipu or ashipu, attend to the sick with calm precision. They watch symptoms carefully, noting fever, cough, or pain. They touch the body gently, feeling pulses, checking skin, and observing the eyes. The healer's voice is soft and steady, offering reassurance as much as treatment. Each act is deliberate, designed to bring balance to the body and calm to the mind. Herbs and natural remedies are central to healing. Leaves, roots, seeds, and flowers are gathered carefully, dried, and stored for use. Mint, thyme, garlic, and willow bark may be used to ease digestion, fever, or pain. Oils are infused with calming scents, applied gently to the skin or hair. Mixtures are prepared in small bowls, measured with care, and administered with patience. Each preparation is made with intent, and the act of giving medicine becomes a ritual of calm attention. Babylonians also understand the importance of cleanliness. Washing hands, cleaning wounds, and maintaining tidy living spaces are quietly emphasized. Clay vessels may hold water for cleansing, and soft cloths or reeds are used to protect skin. Even small actions, rinsing a wound, soaking a cloth in herbal water, gently bandaging, are part of a patient rhythm that nurtures both body and spirit. Observation is central to diagnosis. Healers note patterns, a persistent cough in the morning, swelling in the limbs, or a child's restless sleep. They compare these observations to knowledge in their tablets and oral teachings. Dreams, signs, and omens may also be consulted, reflecting the belief that body, mind, and spirit are interconnected. This integration of practical care with thoughtful reflection allows for treatment that is both measured and soothing. Healing is also intertwined with ritual. Simple incantations, prayers, or offerings may accompany a remedy. A patient might sit quietly, listening to the gentle words of the healer, creating a calming environment that supports recovery. The rhythm of chant, the careful preparation of herbs, and the soft placement of oils all combine to ease both body and mind. Healing is a holistic practice, connecting human effort to divine guidance in a quiet, steady way. Babylonian midwives and birth attendants provide another dimension of care. They help bring new life into the world with gentle hands, calm voices, and careful attention to both mother and child. They use herbs, water, and supportive techniques to ease labor. Newborns are cleaned and swaddled carefully, and the mother rests in a calm space, attended by family and midwife alike. The act of birth is surrounded by patience and observation, reinforcing the rhythm of life that flows quietly through the city. Diseases are met with careful attention, not panic. Healers may isolate the sick to prevent spread, prepare herbal remedies, and maintain a routine of observation. Records of illness, symptoms, and remedies are often kept on clay tablets. These observations are precise, creating a calm archive of knowledge that future generations can reference. Even when illness persists, the process of attentive care, gentle remedies, and measured observation provides reassurance and a sense of control. A simple scene can help anchor these ideas. Picture a small courtyard where a healer sits with a patient. A gentle breeze moves through the palms, carrying the scent of drying herbs. The healer mixes a small potion, applies a warm poultice to the patient's chest, and speaks softly, encouraging rest. A child nearby watches, learning patience and care. Outside, the city hums quietly. Distant voices, the slow flow of the river, the movement of animals. The calm rhythm of treatment reflects the broader rhythm of Babylonian life. Steady, measured, attentive, and nurturing. Healers also focus on prevention. Clean water, good nutrition, and proper rest are emphasized. Simple routines, washing hands before meals, keeping living spaces tidy, tending gardens for fresh food, are seen as acts of care that maintain health. Observation of seasons and weather helps anticipate illness. Damp or cold periods may require warming herbs or protective clothing. Life and health are intertwined with nature, and calm attention allows people to live in balance with their surroundings. The knowledge of Babylonian medicine is preserved carefully. Clay tablets contain recipes, procedures, and notes on successful treatments. Apprentices learn under the patient guidance of experienced healers, observing small gestures, listening to soft instructions, and practicing careful preparation of remedies. Each generation absorbs knowledge slowly, repeating steps until skill and confidence grow. Healing becomes both a science and an art, carried forward with quiet diligence. As night falls, imagine the healer preparing the last poultices of the day. Lamps glow softly, children and adults rest quietly, and the gentle scent of herbs fills the air. The city outside slows, the river glimmers under the moonlight, and the rhythm of care continues in calm, deliberate steps. Every observation, every preparation, and every gentle touch contributes to the steady flow of health and well-being in Babylon. In the next chapter, we will explore Babylonian entertainment and storytelling, the songs, music, and tales that filled homes, gardens, and temples, creating calm joy and connecting the people through shared imagination. Hold the image of herbs, careful hands, and quiet attention as a soothing anchor for your mind. Chapter 15: Entertainment, Storytelling, and the Rhythm of Joy. Take a slow, deep breath and imagine a warm Babylonian evening. The sun has dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples, and the gentle glow of lamps begins to light homes and courtyards. In these quiet spaces, people gather to share stories, sing songs, and listen to music. Entertainment in Babylonia is not hurried or loud. It is a calm, soothing rhythm that connects families, neighbors, and even strangers through the gentle power of imagination and creativity. Storytelling is at the heart of Babylonian entertainment. Parents and elders recount myths of gods, heroes, and great kings. The adventures of Marduk, the protector of Babylon, or the tales of Gilgamesh, the mighty king of Uruk, are shared slowly, with pauses to allow listeners to picture each scene. Each word is deliberate, creating a gentle, immersive rhythm. Children and adults alike sit quietly, imagining rivers, forests, and mountains, imagining gods walking among mortals, and feeling the calm tension of a story's rise and fall. Music accompanies storytelling, adding a soothing layer to the experience. Small lyres, drums, and reed flutes fill the air with gentle sound. A lyre's strings vibrate softly, a drum taps a steady rhythm, and a flute weaves airy notes through the room. The music follows the story, rising gently during moments of action and falling to soft whispers during quiet reflection. Listening becomes a meditative experience, where the mind can wander freely while remaining anchored in the narrative's calm flow. Songs are often simple, with repetitive melodies and words that echo daily life or religious themes. Children learn them at home and in temples, singing while helping with small tasks or walking along canals. The rhythm of song mirrors the rhythm of life, planting and harvest, rising and setting sun, river flowing steadily through fields. Music in Babylonia is both entertainment and a tool for memory, helping people remember history, myths, and cultural lessons in a gentle, comforting way. Public performances occur during festivals or special gatherings. Courtyards or open spaces fill with families, friends, and neighbors, sitting on mats or standing quietly, watching skilled performers. Actors may wear simple masks or costumes, moving slowly and deliberately to tell stories of gods, kings, or local legends. The performances are measured, each gesture meaningful, each word pronounced with care. The focus is not on spectacle, but on shared experience, the calm enjoyment of narrative and movement. The art of theater is intertwined with ritual. During religious festivals, dramatic performances may retell sacred myths, allowing participants to engage with stories of creation, the cycles of nature, or the deeds of gods. Priests and performers coordinate movements, chants, and music with attention to timing and symbolism. the audience experiences these events as both entertainment and spiritual reflection, creating a sense of calm connection to the divine and to one another. Games and recreational activities are also part of daily life. Simple board games, dice, and small puzzles provide quiet amusement for children and adults. These activities require attention, strategy, and patience, offering gentle stimulation without noise or stress. Families play together, teaching problem solving, counting, and the joy of small victories. Even in these simple games, the rhythm of calm focus and measured action mirrors the broader flow of Babylonian life. Storytelling often carries lessons. Tales may explore friendship, courage, wisdom, or respect for nature and the gods. These stories are repeated across generations, with small variations that allow imagination to grow. Listening becomes a shared meditation, where each person absorbs guidance gently, without force or urgency. Myths and legends are more than entertainment. They are vessels for cultural memory, teaching values while creating a soothing, immersive experience. Imagine a scene to hold in your mind. A family sits in a courtyard, a soft lamp illuminating their faces. A storyteller speaks slowly, tracing the adventures of Gilgamesh across a distant landscape. A child hums a melody on a small lyre, while the wind moves gently through date palms. Neighbors listen quietly from nearby doorways, sipping cool water and inhaling the scent of evening herbs. Outside, the river flows calmly, reflecting stars beginning to appear in the sky. Every sound, every word, every gentle note of music contributes to a sense of peace and connection. Even in homes, storytelling is woven into daily routines. While preparing meals, mending cloth, or tending small gardens, parents and elders recount tales, allowing listeners to move seamlessly between work and imagination. The rhythm of words and music accompanies the rhythm of tasks, turning ordinary moments into quiet celebrations of culture and memory. Entertainment in Babylonia is slow, deliberate, and deeply connected to life, reinforcing patience, observation, and calm attention. As night deepens, imagine the final moments of this chapter. The storyteller closes the tale, the lyre's last note fades, and the audience rests quietly, minds full of vivid imagery and gentle reflection. The city outside is still, the river flows steadily, and the stars wheel silently above. Music, stories, and games leave a lingering sense of calm joy, a rhythm that continues quietly even as the city sleeps.